Salve, welcome to this video lesson on an introduction to the subjunctive mood. So far you've learned regular indicative mood verbs, which are used in normal statements and questions, and you've learned imperative mood verbs that are used in commands, greetings, and farewells. So some examples of the indicative mood verbs: amo, I love; amabomini, y'all were loved; we disti, you have seen; we see errant, they had been seen. So all of those various tenses, active and passive, those are all just still what we call indicative mood verbs. They're normal statement question verbs. Some example imperative mood verbs: audi, here as a singular command; audite, here as a plural command; loquere, that is a passive imperative form, but it's loquor as a deponent verb, so we still would translate that speak, singular command. And then loquimini would be speak in the plural as a command. Now the subjunctive mood, this new mood, is used in many dependent and subordinate clauses in Latin. That is to say, not as the main verb of a clause usually, but it can also be used to express possibility, polite commands, and wishes. And if it's used to express those things, it might even be in the main clause. Now, you might want to think of subjunctive as sort of iffy or a kind of imaginary or hypothetical thing, since subjunctive often expresses ideas that are in the author or speaker's mind, whether or not they're actually true. Now, in English, subjunctives are often indicated via modal verbs, and notice the word modal is actually related to the word mood that we used up above. Both mood and modal come from the Latin modus, modi, which of course is the noun, masculine noun that means mode, manner, means, or perhaps mood or method. But basically we're talking about sort of modalities of things, like a sort of way of approaching something. Like you might have a wish or a potential expression, possible expression, and those are modalities. So here are some modal verbs in English used to express subjunctive: may, might, would, should. And there are others as well, such as let. Now, some example English subjunctive using modal verbs: may the force be with you, so that's a sort of a wish or a prayer. Should they leave? I would want to know. That's another way of saying if they should leave, I would want to know. So technically that's what we would call a should-would conditional, or a future less vivid conditional clause. And then finally, one might think so, and that is expressing a sort of potentiality or possibility. One might think so given certain circumstances. Okay, however, the English present subjunctive is still occasionally used in sentences like I ask that he come. If that sounds a little weird to you, it's because this type of use of the English present subjunctive is kind of phasing out. Only certain educated persons use it. So I ask that he come. The come, notice, is after he. Normally we would say he comes with an S on the end, right? That's the indicative. So come, basically this is the present subjunctive in English, and you get that by just taking the English infinitive to come and just chop the to off the front of it, or in other words, just use the present tense form without an S on the end, right? It doesn't matter what the subject is. I ask that we come, I ask that he come, I ask that they come. It's always come, or whatever the verb is. Okay? Now in Latin, subjunctives will use normal, active, and passive subject endings, but they're always going to use the M, never the O, for the active I form of a verb. So for example, in present tense indicative we say amo, but in imperfect indicative we say amabom with the M on the end. Subjunctive will always use the M. So here we go. Present tense subjunctive in Latin. How do we make it? You replace the vowel stem. The vowel stem is what we get from the second principal part when we chop off the RE from that infinitive ending. You take that vowel stem and you replace the vowel with a new vowel or vowels. And there's a nice little mnemonic or memory device that helps us remember what the new vowels are going to be. For first conjugation verbs, we need an E. For second, we need EA. For third, we need the new vowel A. For third IO, we need IA. And also for fourth, we need IA. There are a lot of different mnemonics for this. Clem eats clams in Siam, I think, is one. But I really like this one. Number one, because let's do something is something that you could express in subjunctive. For example, faciamus would be let's do. So I like this one. Let's beat a giant friar. Now, if you don't want to beat up a priest, friar is a kind of type of traveling priest, then you could say let's beat a giant liar. Maybe you don't like liars very much. So the let's gives us the vowel for first conjugation, like an amo, amare type verb. Beat gives us the vowels for second with the long E. Third, those are the short ERE type verbs. The vowel there needs to be the A. And third IO and fourth both need the IAs. So let's look at the chart here. So notice how this works out. We're just adding normal endings. So for amo, amare, instead of the indicative amo, amas, amat, we're switching vowels and we get amem, ames, amet, amamus, ametus, ament, and then the passive amer, ameris, amater, amamer, amamini, amenter. So the key thing is really the sound change inside, right? That infix of the verb, the vowels inside are changing to indicate present subjunctive. All right, and then for wideo, again, if this were indicative, it would go wideo, wides, widet, but here we switch to the subjunctive vowels, EA from let's beat a giant friar, so the EA, and we get widiam, widias, widiat, widiamus, widiatus, widiant, and then passive widiar, widiaris, widiatur, widiamer, widiamini, widiantur. Now, I will say here, I'm not going to go through all of these examples, but you will notice that the vowel of the subjunctive stem, whether it be an E or EA or IA, whatever it is, the last vowel, if it's only one vowel, then that is the last, but if you have two in a row like EA or IA, whatever the last vowel is long by nature. But it does get shortened according to our phonetic rules that I've spoken about before. So for example, the final M in amem and wideam, the final R in amer, the final T in amet, and then the NT anywhere in a word, those are going to shorten the vowels. So then all I want to say now is to take a look at the irregular subjunctive forms of sum. Now sum esse, the being verb, in the indicative this would be sum, I am, s, you are, est, he, she, it is, and so on. In the subjunctive, it's actually pretty regular once you know the stem. The stem is C with a long I. And then you just add endings. Sim, si, sit. Notice the sim and the sit have shortened the I. And then simus, situs, sent. And again, in the sent, the NT has shortened the I. Just FYI, I have shown you as well for verbs like wolo, irregular verb for I want, nolo, I don't want, malo, I want something more or I prefer it, and then the irregular verb ao, which is I go. The subjunctive stems for those in present tense are weli, noli, mali, and then aya. So I want you to notice a pattern that with sum and with the various forms of want and not want and want more, nolo, malo, and all these various ones. Wolo is the I want, nolo, I don't want, malo, I want something more or prefer it. With all those various verbs, the present subjunctive has this I stem, right? So seem, willim, nolim, and malim. AO does something a little different. I think it's basically on analogy of what you see in second conjugation, like wideo going to wideam, so AO goes to ayam. But notice the patterning there. And those verbs typically have no passive. All right, well, I hope that works out and makes sense to you. There is a link to a Quizlet that I put together to practice present subjunctive verbs with a few more tips, so you might try that out. Volete omnes.